Today I'm going to be taking a look at the Emax NanoHawk. It says that it's a beginner indoor nano racing drone and it comes in a nice sealed box. So when I first saw this guy, I wondered what Emax was up to because we already have the very popular TinyHawk series, but the difference between that series and this one is the fact that this is a 65mm model and the TinyHawk is a 75mm model. And it says it's a beginner indoor racer drone. One thing I'm seeing straight away that's different is the frame. A problem that the TinyHawk has is its flexibility. This has a proper carbon fiber bottom plate, whereas the TinyHawk series is all molded plastic. So when you are flying it about, especially in wind outdoors, it does flex quite a bit, but there's no flex in this frame at all compared to the TinyHawk. One thing I am seeing straight away is these protectors which bend really easily, and for something that is deemed to be an indoor drone, we have got some walls here that are recently newly painted, and I would worry about the props. Can you see? They actually go through the protector, and if you have a hard crash against the wall, then I think you are going to get some scrapes along the wall. So I would say that the TinyHawk 2 or the TinyHawk is probably better suited indoors, even though it's a little bit bigger. This one's gonna get through smaller gaps for sure, but it might do some damage to your furniture along the way. I also think that these props here, which I think are Emax's own design props, are going to break. Now, they do give you a spare set in the box. This is what it looks like inside the box, so you can actually keep the quadcopter in there. We have got a 300 milliamp hour battery, 1S, and it's got what looks like a GMB27 connector on there, so different than the PH2 connectors on the TinyHawk battery, which is also a 450 milliamp 1S, so slightly different battery as well. But it does look like they have given some adapters here in this bag. So we've got a little mini screwdriver, we have got a rubber band, so spare rubber band, the battery just goes underneath there, and it looks like we have got two adapters here, so that is the GMB27 to the PH2, so you can still use your PH2 chargers. And is this the opposite end as well? No, it looks like we've just got two of those, so you wouldn't be able to use this connector on your TinyHawk 2 battery, for example, and connect it up to this one with one of these adapters. Either you would have to take those batteries and cut off the PH2 connector and solder on one of these GMB27 connectors. Looks like we've got some spare screws in there as well, and also some soft mounts for the all-in-one flight control and ESC board. And then we've got this charger here, which interestingly is a PH2 charger. Let's see if it has got a switch on it so that you can switch between high and low voltage. Doesn't look like it. So the motors are little tiny 802 19,000 kV motors, and the propeller size is a 1201 propeller. So that's what, 31 millimeters, is it? Something like that. And the all-in-one ESC and flight controller, it's an F4 flight controller with 5 amp ESCs, which should be ample for 1S, and the VTX is just 25 milliwatt. It is locked as well to certain channels, so I believe it's a button on here the same as all of the other Emax models, so hold the button down when you plug it in, and then a light will come on when it's unlocked and the light will go off when it's locked. It comes with a built-in FrSky D8 and D16 receiver, but because it is built into the board, it's an SPI receiver, and there's still a problem with dropouts with D16 mode. So you're basically going to be using D8 mode with this, and the range won't be that great with that either, maybe 80 meters, something like that. But you aren't going to need a lot of range with this anyways, because we've got the 25 milliwatt VTX, and it's designed for indoors, they are saying. The camera is just mounted on here. Can that be moved? That's a strange way, isn't it, to mount the camera. There's a little lip there, but you can't change the angle on it. So is that just the design of the frame? But that is going to move a lot. And the camera is just there. It's a Runcam 3 Nano. So it's a nice CMOS camera, but I think we're going to get a lot of jello where it's mounted there, maybe even indoors. Okay, let's see how much this one weighs. So it's 20.7 grams without the battery, and then with a 300 milliamp hour LiPo it's 29.5 grams. So near as damn it 30 grams. What I would like to see with this kit, and maybe there will be options, is a version with more of these batteries, especially as it seems that the NanoHawk 2 batteries aren't compatible. I mean, they're going to be heavier, and maybe it will fly with the 450 milliamp hour NanoHawk 2 batteries, but we need that connector. And even if there was just an adapter that could change the PH2 connector into one of these so that we can use that with our other batteries, but no, you would have to chop them off and solder them up if you wanted to use the NanoHawk batteries. So if you are interested in this kit, then make sure you get a load of these batteries. With it being Emax, of course, there will be lots of spare parts available for it, including the battery. Alrighty, I got my Jumper TX16S. Okay, so I need to create a new model, so I'm going to long press this one here, model select, and create new model. I'm going to ignore the wizard and return back, and then return back here, and this button up here to get into the model, just call it NanoHawk. Okay, now I'm going to scroll to the bottom, and where it says internal RF, I'm going to slide that across to multi, and where it says fly sky there, I'm going to find FR sky, and we return over, need to go over where it says D16, and we need to select D8 and then hit back. Now I'm going to page over to the mixer, and then on channel 5 I'm going to set up my arming, so I'm just going to name it A for arming, and then on the source switch I always have it as this switch here, and it should change it automatically. Then back out of that, and the next one I always set up for modes, and I just go up to M for mode rather than typing it all out. And then source here, I usually have this switch here for my modes, return back, and on channel 7 I have that as B for buzzer, and I usually have that on this one here. Now if I return, it's ready to bind. So the VTX is actually a separate board, but annoyingly the button to unlock the extra channels is right next to the USB connector. Now the USB connector is nice and strong, but it's going to make unlocking the VTX difficult. I have to do it with the battery. So let's connect through BetaFlight. We have got BetaFlight version 4.2. And Emax always say, don't change any of their settings, they are perfect. But let's see. So looking at the UARTs here, we have got one spare UART for a different receiver if you don't want to use the onboard one. It's using TBS Smart Audio for the VTX. Let's go into the configuration. D-Shot 300 here with motor stop off, that's why I like it. We've got 8K, 4K, arming set to 180, which is unusual for Emax. They usually have like a safe setting of 25, but 180 means that it will arm regardless of the position of the quadcopter. We've got some personalization in there. It's already set to FR Sky D out of the box. FR Sky X would be D16. Let's have a look here. Nothing to worry about. Now that's interesting, we haven't got RX lost and RX set, but there's no physical buzzer on this, so I like to have that. Even though these motors are tiny and you won't be able to hear them, I think that's better than nothing. So we've got dynamic filter, on-screen display and air mode, and all of that's fine, so I wouldn't change anything there. Let's see if it will reboot. No, it needs reconnecting. So power and battery, it's set at 3.5. I'm going to set it to 3.3 just in case, but with this new connector, we might find that it's better when it comes to current draw and voltage sag, but let's stick it at 3.3 into the PID tuning. So they must have their own PIDs, I would have thought. Let's see if we've got different profiles. It looks like just the one profile there, and let's check out the rates as well. Wow, that is really low. I guess it is a beginner here. Oh, we've got other rate profiles as well though. So that one's a little bit more my style. Let's have a see. Yeah, so the rest are stock. Yeah, that one is probably the one I would use. So you go into your on-screen display and change it to rate profile 2. So no need to change anything there really. Onto receiver, and we've got TAER1234 RSSI channel set to disabled, which is correct if you have got an SPI based receiver because it's already built in, it already feeds through. We've got 1 as the RC deadband. I'm gonna stick that up to 7 just because that's what I like. You don't have to do that. It just means that the dead zone in the center of your stick is guaranteed not to be there when you stick it under 7. Now modes, this is where I'll probably have to change something. Let's see. So we've got, actually not, so yeah, arming, I put on the auxiliary 1, and then modes, angle, I mean horizon, don't know, but that's fine. This position over here on the aux 2 will be acro, so that's actually fine. Beeper, so that's interesting, isn't it? It wasn't set up in the configuration, but there is a beeper set there. And then we've got flip over after crash on the auxiliary 4. I'm just going to take that off. I don't like flip over after crash. I've always said this, you know, there's always risk of burning a motor. No, I know this is an indoor model, but if you're racing, I guess it's useful, but otherwise, go and pick the model up. It's not worth risk arming the motors and it getting stuck and smoking a motor or ESC. All that looks okay. So let's go into the on-screen display. See if there's anything I change there. This is just my preference. I'll just turn the warnings off because they annoy me. We've got the battery voltage there. We haven't got RSSI, I don't think. Probably because it's going to show very low all of the time, but I'll stick that up there anyways somewhere and see what we get. But it's always going to be a low figure when it comes to these D8 SPI receivers. So if I press save on there, and what I can do is we can go into the CLI and we want to type in bind RX, bind, is it underscore RX? Yeah, there we go, and then I can turn on the TX16 and we can go into the menu and bind it that way. So if I go into the model and then down to where it says bind, like that. Okay, and then return. And then if we disconnect in BetaFlight and reconnect, there you go. So it has recognized that it's disconnected, so that must mean that the bind worked. And there we go. Telemetry lost. Telemetry recovered. Oh, that's all ready to go. So the VTX doesn't power up anyways when you plug the USB in because it's a separate board. Okay, let's see if I can awkwardly unlock the VTX. So holding the button down, jab the battery in, and it says that an LED should shine constantly. But it's not doing. Something I have noticed is that the VTX's antenna is soldered directly to the VTX. So if this gets caught in the props, which it looks like it's possible, yeah, look at that, then this is going to get mangled and it's going to be difficult to replace. So make sure that you stick a cable tie or something like that so it sticks up. Not ideal, but at least it's going to get it out of the way of the props. I'm going to be using my Fat Shark HDO2s with the Furious FPV battery. then the rapid fire module and the Menace periscope antenna, and I really should be using a Bandicoot antenna because this one is a linear antenna, but for just flying around the house, this one should be fine. This is the Pico Patch. Okay, so the voltage is reading 4.26, so it's very likely that the charger is charging the battery to a high volt. Either that or the calibration is slightly out with the voltage scaling. So I'm going to go throttle in the middle, pitch forward, and then yaw to the left. Do that again. Throttle in the middle, pitch forward, yaw to the left. And let's go into profile. So you can see rate profile already set to 2, so that is fine. Go back, then save and exit. Exit, there we go. So we're on race band 4 at 25 milliwatt. Just looking at the RSSI, that's hovering in the 70s. I'm in angle mode. I can see 4x3 with the camera, so let's arm it. Okay, we're in a hover. Straight away I can see a little bit of noise feeding through to the video, and I think a little bit of Jallo as well. So I'm in low light here, so if I'm getting Jallo in low light, then it's only going to be worse in the daytime. Got a nice hover, but the camera angle for this short space here, it's a little bit too much of an angle. I guess if you have got a bigger space, then you might like this angle, but with the NanoHawk 2 you can adjust the angle. I'm also very conscious of the fact that I'm not fully protected with these protectors. All of this paint around here is fairly new. Let's see if I can get in a tiny gap. The transmitter's haptic feedback is having a go at me because the RSSI is really low. Let's see if I can get through this. Oh, I've only got the one battery because we're in lockdown, you see, and this is the only time I've got the house to myself. So one battery, house to myself. I won't have a chance to charge the battery again before the house is empty. That's really off-putting, the haptic feedback. There we go, on the transmitter. I've still got control. Of course, this being analog, I'm getting quite a bit of breakup. Let's see if I can get up the stairs. It might drop out here. Either the video or the control is getting sketchy. Yeah, so I can just about get to the other side of the house. This is what I'm dreading. Watch the paint work. Okay, we're back down. Phew. Yeah, I don't feel as confident as I do with the NanoHawk around the house, even though this is a smaller model. Just don't have the confidence in those protectors. I'm sure if I just sort of kissed the wall, it'd be fine. I think you'd have to smack into something pretty hard for those props to penetrate the prop protectors. But yeah, I'm not feeling too confident. The transmitter buzzes at the exact same time around here, which is really off-putting when it comes to the control, but you can get in nice tiny gaps with it. Just have to make sure that you're not too bothered about the paintwork in the house. So just looking at the voltage here, it's getting pretty low. We're at 3 minutes there, so yeah, 3-minute flight time by the looks of it. I think it's a good model for flying around the house, and it will get in tighter spots than the NanoHawk 2, but only just about. I think if I was to choose between this one and the NanoHawk, I'd go with the NanoHawk. The voltage is flashing there, so let's come in for a landing. Okay, let's go for a line of sight flight with this guy. Don't mind the fact that there is a frost and it's minus 12 degrees Celsius. Something that is a little bit tricky on this model is the fact that when you connect the battery, it's really tricky, and you have to make sure that this wire here isn't going into the motor. Okay, I'm going to start off in angle mode. It's actually not much breeze around, so that's good. See, the battery has to sort of sit off to one side, otherwise the connector won't fit. Anyways, I'm just coming out here so we can see how much power this thing has. Yeah, not bad. Probably more power than your average 65mm model, but not loads. You can see it struggling with the power to weight. I reckon towards the end of the battery you might see some yaw washout. Quite nimble though, can do acro, line of sight. Having to try and keep it in close because the thing is so tiny. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Don't know whether it's going to show through on the camera. I mean, it's tiny for me to see, so the wide angle on the GoPro on my head might be even more difficult. Anyways, let's go for some power again. Yeah, I think when it's like this, you know, fairly calm and completely frozen, you could fly it outside, but really it's an indoor model, isn't it? It even says it on the box to give it full throttle then to recover from that sort of power loop flip sort of thing. Don't want it to land on the snow or the frost because the heat from that little board will melt it. Oh yeah, nice loop. Yeah, the heat from the board will melt it and then we'll get a short. So don't do what I'm doing, don't fly it around in the snow or the ice, because if you crash, could be curtains for it. Tell you what though, I'm having a lot of fun with this. I think I am hearing a slight flutter, you know, just in the middle there. Yeah, there's a vibration there. It's either a vibration or a bit of noise. I'll tell you what, just for like a little space, look at that, little mini power loop. Yeah, I'm loving this. Oh, it's so difficult on the eyes though. It really is difficult with the orientation. Yeah, you can hear it just bottoming out there when I'm coming back up on the power. And I think the battery's going, so let's go and do some FPV with it. Okay, let's go for an FPV flight outdoors with this guy. Oh, Jello everywhere. I kind of expected that though, to be honest. This is really risky, flying this guy out when there's snow on the ground. If this drops down into the snow and it heats up, then it's going to fry the board, so don't do this. Right, let's see what the flight characteristics are like. Full throttle, yeah, plenty of power. Let's see if we can do inverted yaw spin. A little bit of a wobble there, and there's no yaw washouts. That's good. We've got enough power to do that, to keep it in close. Look at that RSSI in the 30s, and the transmitter's haptic feedback is buzzing, because I think it's set to 40 or something like that for the RSSI. Oh, voltage sag, yeah, so that GMB 27 connector still having problems with voltage sag. But it's really nice to fly. Very calm here. It's a bit of a wobble.
and when you recover from maneuvers, you have to make sure that you give it plenty of throttle. I'm going to come over here because see the voltage getting low really quick. I did charge it to a high volt. It does look like the charger supplied charged it to a high volt, but this is a very short flight time. I'm sure the weather has got something to do with that, but it flies nice. We've got a lot of jello, we've got some video noise, but it's not like we're trying to make a movie with this footage. We're just trying to have fun, so maybe it doesn't matter that there's jello on the picture and a little bit of noise. It's a lot of fun, but it's over quick. 2 minutes and 9 seconds, and look at that, the battery has recovered to 3.7 volts. That should be flyable, but with the current draw it goes straight into flashing. Oh, it hit the tree there, yeah, so that could be the cold. But there you go, that is my review of the Emax NanoHawk. I'll put a link in the video description as well as a pinned comment if you wish to get one, and as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.